Hi, it's Katie. Welcome to this week's food prep. I'm going to start this video off with just sort of my usual everyday things. I show these in lots of videos. I think in videos moving forward I might just mention them and not show them since I do them all the time, and that is to bake a loaf of bread. So that's the bread that I made before, and I had it frozen in these loaves like that. You can see how that freezer paper worked so much better than the wax paper. And after this, everything went wrong. I had actually had it upside down so you can see the seam that should have been on the underside, and then I let it rise a little bit too long and it got a little bit dried out too. So it's not the prettiest loaf, but it tastes fine, it's edible, and we used it this week, so no problems. That's what it looks like there. Cut the slices a little bit thicker because it was just kind of a mess on top, but it's worked well for us this week. And next we have my nut milk. Usually I make almond milk. This time I decided to try hazelnut milk, and it's made just the same, so a cup of nuts and then just soak them overnight. And the hazelnuts were floating, so I ended up putting a dish to kind of hold them under the liquid. I don't know if that's necessary, but I did it. So that just holds the nuts under the water. Let them soak overnight. Actually, let these soak for probably about 18 hours. Then drain that water away, rinse them really well. The water was quite a bit murkier than the water that I drain off of almonds. So just keep that in mind if you're going to try to make hazelnut butter, or hazelnut milk, sorry. And so I'm giving them a really good rinse to make sure that all of that murky water is off. And then I'm going to put them in the Vitamix with a quart of filtered water. So a cup of nuts and a quart of water is the usual. I think most nuts are the same. So far I've tried almond and hazelnut, and the hazelnut milk, it's really delicious, but it has quite a strong flavor. It tastes like very hazelnutty, which I like. I enjoy that, so it was fine. I can see how it kind of might taste like coffee creamer, like hazelnut coffee creamer, so just keep that in mind. I think almond milk has more neutral flavor, so it would be good for using in lots of different things, but the hazelnut milk was really delicious on my cereal and in my tea this week, so I really enjoyed it. So I just blend it in the Vitamix with, like I said, a quart of water, and I just blend it for 45 seconds to a minute, and then I will pour it in this strainer that has just a kitchen towel in it, and that way I can strain the nut pulp away from the nut milk. So I just let it drip. I don't go straight to squeezing it these days. I just kind of let it drip, wash my Vitamix, and putter around the kitchen for 15 minutes, and that gets more than half of it without me doing any work. And then to get the last little bit out, I do squeeze the towel just to get every last drop out. Then once I have it all strained and squeezed dry, I'll just pour it in this container and store it in the refrigerator. Next up, I'm going to work on preparing for my meals for the week. This week I'm going to make beef and bean burritos. So I'm going to make some whole wheat tortillas, and I'm just making the dough ahead of time, and then I will make the tortillas the day that I need them. But they cook on the stovetop on a griddle, and they're very quick. So that I'm going to do the day before, or the day of, because they're really delicious and fresh, and you want that really, if you're going to take the time to make them homemade, you want that really fresh flavor. So this recipe, I wasn't able to find it. I got it online a long time ago. I use it all the time, but I wasn't able to find the exact recipe that I use online. I was having trouble finding the source. I don't remember where I got it from. So I will put the ingredients in the description box, but basically you just mix all of the ingredients together. There's flour, baking powder, salt, olive oil, and then you just mix that together, kind of cut that fat into the flour, and then you add water a little bit at a time. The recipe calls for half a cup. I tend to use more like 3/4 of a cup, but it just depends on your environment, and you just add it a little bit at a time until it makes almost a dough. You can see how it doesn't quite look like a dough yet, but you just want to knead it with your hands. You want to make sure you're not adding too much water, so stop short, knead it, and then if you need a little bit more, you can add a little bit more. So I'm putting a lot of footage of making this because I want you to see kind of each of the steps and see how it comes together, because it does take a little bit of time to get just the right amount of water in. So you can see now it's actually starting to come together in a dough, and I'm just going to mix it together. You don't really need to knead it. You just want to make sure there's no pockets of dry, and just make sure that it's not too shaggy. So just knead it like 10 or 20 times. So you don't need to knead it for several minutes, just long enough that it's kind of all homogeneous there. And then that's all I'm going to do ahead of time. I'm just going to put this into a plastic container, and this is not a yeast dough, so you don't need to worry about it rising up. If it was a yeast dough, I would put it in a larger container so that when it rises, it wouldn't explode my container, which has happened before. So this you can just put in a smaller container. It was in the fridge, so this is the day that I'm going to use it. It was in the fridge for about 2 days, and when I took it out of the fridge, I just kneaded it just a little bit just to kind of loosen it up again because it got a little bit stiff from being cold. And then I divided it up into 10 portions, and I'm just using a little bit of flour on my countertop and my rolling pin there, and I'm rolling it out, and you want to roll it as thin as you can. And these rolled out really nicely. If you make the dough sort of right before you roll it out, it has a tendency to spring back, and it's kind of a pain to roll out. But since this was made a couple days before, it was rested, and the gluten was relaxed, and it was a lot easier to roll out. So I definitely recommend making this ahead of time. I will be making it ahead of time from now on. I might even try freezing a batch to see how that turns out. But when it's ready to cook them, since it's rolled out nice and thin, I'm just going to put them in a dry cast iron skillet. I have my temperature set sort of medium, sort of a low medium. I think it's at like 3 out of 10 there. And this clip is real time, so you can see these bubbles come up. It doesn't take long, about a minute or a minute and a half per side. So I tend to pop the bubbles. I feel like it makes it cook a little bit more even. But you don't have to, depending on how the bubbles come up. If they're smaller bubbles, you can leave them. When they get a little big, you can see how they kind of balloon up, and then pulls the other part of the tortilla up off the pan. It doesn't cook evenly, in my opinion. And then I just take them out and I stack them up on the plate, and they're ready to eat. Next thing I'm going to make is just a snack for the week. My little one likes these, and my husband and I like them as well. So they're just frozen edamame in the shell, and I just boil them for 5 minutes, just according to the package directions. I'm just stirring them there to make sure they're all under the water. Boil them for 5 minutes, and then drain them. I'm going to shake off the excess water, and then I'll just put a little bit of salt, and then shake them around just to sort of distribute that salt all over the different edamame pods there. And then I'm going to store these in the refrigerator. So I just put them into a storage container, and probably should let them cool a little bit. I didn't bother. It doesn't really make that big of a difference. So just pour them into a container, put the lid on, and pop them in the fridge. And these are a great snack for in front of the TV because you can just kind of pop them like popcorn, or just a good protein-rich snack for my little one. All right, the next thing I'm doing is I'm going to work on some bulk items here. I got this big 2-pound block of cheese last week, I think, and I just cut it into more manageable pieces since we won't use 2 pounds of cheese in the time that you would need to eat it before it goes bad. So I just cut them into 4 pieces, so that's 8 ounces. That's what a typical block of cheese you get from the grocery store would be, and that size works well for my family. And I just vacuum seal them in some food saver bags there, and once it's vacuum sealed, it will last for many, many weeks in the refrigerator. So there I have 3 of the 4 blocks in food saver bags, and the last block is what my husband will use this week, and I will just put that in a reusable container. And he was actually standing off camera waiting for me to hand that to him. He wanted it right away. The other bulk item I have this week is apples. We went apple picking, so I got 27 pounds of Yellow Delicious or Golden Delicious, Fuji's, a few Granny Smith, a few Stamen. And I don't normally wash my apples ahead of time. I just wash them, right before I need them. But I wanted to kind of closely inspect these apples since my toddler helped me pick and handle them. So I just wanted to make sure if there were any that had any bruises or blemishes that they were pulled to the side and used first. So to wash my apples, I just have some cool running water and I'm just scrubbing them with a clean dish cloth. So you can see I'm pulling the ones that are a little bit damaged off to the side, and we'll use those first. The rest I'm just going to put in these containers. So yeah, I didn't use any veggie wash or anything. I actually read a really interesting article about how veggie wash is not that effective, and the most effective way to clean produce is to scrub it. The actual mechanical action of scrubbing is the most effective way to remove dirt, germs, pesticides, everything. So I will link that article down below. There's a lot of other interesting information in that article. The article's from the University of Colorado State University Extension Office. So a pretty reputable source. They have some really interesting information. So definitely worth a read. So check that out. So there is my apples all packed up, and I'm just going to keep these in my basement since I don't have that much storage space in my refrigerator, and I'm going to be making some fun things with these. So I will either put them in next week's food prep video, or I might make a separate video about some apple things that I want to make. So until then, I will see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.